So I don't know whether don't know everybody around the table whether they just want to introduce themselves to you. Obviously, we know you, but just so anyway, do you want to just lead round?
Yeah, we'll introduce Jeff.
Hi. Town Council for Iceni was, or the new area.
Terry Land, Town Councillor for Priory, District Councillor for Boodicott.
Rick Peters, Town Council Borough.
Annie Blackburn, Town and District Councillor for Castle Ward.
David, but you're not going to remember all these names.
Not off the top of my head. If I remember quickly, I could just scribble them all down. But I will try and get used to you and sort of know what your interests are. We will, as I say, do our best to provide the information you need with the limited information I have.
So Mark's going to support us on the planning applications as we go through. Obviously, refer to Alan as necessary. So we'll start off with 74123. Sorry, Vic.
You said Mark. I don't have a clue.
Mark Webster.
Mark Webster.
Webster.
Okay, thank you. I've got no background on him at all. I don't know.
Don't worry. Mark, did you want to give a bit of background?
So yes, I did work here for 2.5 years as a countryside officer. Part of my job was to process the planning applications and information for councils and do all that side of things to get things ready. So as I say, I'm A, probably a bit rusty now, and B, I won't know what your particular interests are in the way that I perhaps did with previous personnel. So apologies for that, but I will attempt to hit the ground, if not running, then at least a sort of sedate jog, and try and get you up to date with as much information as I can about the application. So I have looked at the ones that we've got today. Just to let you know what I'm actually doing, if you want to know about me, I work for TCV, which is the Conservation Volunteers, and we have sort of made an arrangement with Thetford Town Council to borrow me for a while, basically. So as I said, my main background is in wildlife and conservation. But I managed just about. I mean, some of the other councillors may tell you differently, but I managed just about to cope with the planning side of the job while I was here before. So hopefully I'll be able to, as I said, give the information you need to make decisions for upcoming planning applications for the next few months.
I'm sorry if you think.
No, that's fine. You're very welcome. Hopefully find out who on earth I am. Yeah.
So it's difficult because I'm not aware of who knows what. So thanks for pointing.
I know nothing.
Sorry. Apologies. I will have it corrected.
It's just showing off that you can.
So you can see I can't. It's going on behind me. Okay, 74123, declarations any disclosable pecuniary interest. Thank you. So 74223, apologies for absence, please, Karen.
Apologies have been received from Councillor Evans, Jefferson, McCambridge and Wood.
74323, the minutes to confirm the minutes of the planning committee held on the 13th of February, which were received by full council on 27th of February. Are you happy for those to be signed as true record?
Yes.
740, first one being A and 0006 Bishop's Primary Academy, Canterbury Way, Mark.
Okay, so this application is actually expected to be within permitted development for a school. It's quite an extensive site. There are going to be 478 solar panels on it. The applicants in their application are very keen to stress that the vast majority of those are on flat roofs. You probably have been over that side, actually, so I can point to it. But the only building that is not a flat roof and therefore has a hint, yeah, thank you. Exactly. I'm just pointing at you. Yeah, so that is the only building that is, in any sense, got a south-facing roof. And as the applicants say, that actually isn't facing any residential buildings either. I mean, it would be slightly visible from the road. And if you have a look at on the top of page 4 presentation pack, if we can get that. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that is the building that's circled there. Let me just go back up to see the actual picture of the building. I think that's the one. Yeah, there it was. Yeah. So it's obviously a significant amount of solar generation. They are going to be, as I said, the vast majority would be on flat roof, or they are going to be coated with an anti-glare. So it's a standard solar panel that you would see everywhere. This is from the letter that came with the planning application for solar from schools. They say, since the proposed installation will be positioned south on all of the school roofs, chances of neighbouring properties seeing and being affected by the panels is very unlikely. That is, as I said, their opinion. At this stage, it is, as I say, expectedly within permitted development, but there is the capacity on the Brecon Planning website for comments if you should wish to make them.
Happy to support?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, back on to B then, 0040, Thetford Sports Centre.
So this is a discharge of conditions from a previous planning application with regard to the provision of a noise management plan, specifically the all-weather sports pitch, which is it's that one, I assume, isn't it? There we are. Yeah, sorry. So this is the all-weather sports pitch. So as you can see, it is on the corner of Stamford Road there. So there are small number of properties that are directly next to it. Just above it there, that's a sort of industrial or business unit. So on most sides, it isn't directly affecting residential properties, but there are a small number that are close to it. So therefore, a noise management plan was required as part of the planning application, and that's the document that's now being submitted. Measures in that policy do include a policy against swearing, so any group that are found to breach that policy can be removed, and it also includes a finish time of 10 p.m. or 6 p.m. on Sunday.
I think that's pretty much a note, isn't it? Because the condition has been discharged.
Yeah.
I will just make a glib comment, I'm afraid. We put in there the idea of shifting the pitch by a couple of metres to enable a walkway round. Brecon basically came back to me when I challenged it, saying, "Oh, there's no money in the budget to do that. You've stuck with the footprint that you've got." So I'm really disappointed in the way that they came along with that.
You can answer a comment should you wish to.
Yeah, the noise management plan is a discharge of those conditions. I'm just informing our councillors the feedback that I had from Brecon that the Great Thetford Partnership.
But the point being, if they moved it 3 metres north, it would be less noise.
If we want to make that comment, are we happy to just leave it as is, or do you want to make a comment to that effect?
Either.
So, no comment?
I think if we're able to comment, we should reiterate the point that we made previously about noise. I remember this, we had quite a big debate about it for a number of reasons, and noise specifically came up. Is it going to be any more noisy than what's there at the moment? No, because to a large extent it's a replacement facility. But this was a fresh application. It was an opportunity to address the noise problems. And, I think we should refer Brecon to the previous comments we made about noise. I'm sure they ignored them the first time, they're ignoring them the second time. But actually, we should make the point that actually facilities like this do have a detrimental impact on residents.
Okay, Mike, you want to come in, Mac?
If it was moved 2 yards or whatever, there would be an option to put in a sound break of trees, a quick growing conifers or whatever. So I think it's a missed opportunity if they continue to turn this idea down. And I think it would please perhaps those residents in those houses to feel that some notice was taken of their situation which they didn't ask for if it's been put upon them.
Matt, good sir.
I just think that a no swearing policy is utterly unpoliceable. And why write it? They must think we're complete idiots.
I think the noise is the noise because I can hear when Thetford play at home, I can hear it from my house and I live on Fairfield. So I don't know how you're going to reduce the noise on that pitch. Anyway.
Terry then, Chris.
Again, sort of referring to if they moved it The potential for light pollution on those houses would be reduced as well, because you'll get quite a bit of light from the whatever floodlights they use. Every which way you look.
According to Breton, it's going to be much quieter because the sound of pokeballs hitting the wood at the back won't happen anymore,
Reluctantly, from our point of view.
which is really crazy, but that was part of the rationale.
So do we want to make a comment, fall on deaf ears, but, yeah, okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
About noise.
What
Yeah.
comment exactly do you want to make? Just refer to previous.
Yeah. Okay. So to see then 0134 7 Coltsfoot Way.
Yeah, this is, I think we've got a picture up just a little bit. Yeah, there. So this is a retrospective, so they're already there, and it refers to two wall-mounted air conditioning units, which are on the side of the house. And well, I don't think there's much I can say really, apart from there's the picture of them.
So are they mounted on the floor or are they going to be mounted higher than that?
That's wall-mounted, but
Yeah.
they do seem to me to be sitting on the floor.
Yeah. Comments?
Issue recently about a school having those things mounted, and there's a lot of noise comes from them. And you know, you're talking about noise, and if that's like a fridge humming all night, I wouldn't want to live next door to it.
Boundary's very close, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Objections or supporter?
I don't like them. I think they're essential.
This
Maximum time.
no householder comments from the neighbours that I can see.
So I think this is going to be quite a difficult one because all the ground source heat pumps look exactly the same as this. And that is the big push at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, had they been mounted on the side of the wall up high, I think there would have been a right to sort of complain about it. But I think this will be quite difficult.
Carla, then Terry.
I was just going to ask, I didn't specify exactly why they need these specific units, or do you know if they look into any other options, or?
I think it's to support the internal use of cold air to keep the house cool. That's the only thing I think we've got there, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it just says 3 months air conditioning. How hot? Yeah.
Terry, you want to come in?
Yeah, I think the point Mark just made about there being no comments from neighbours is quite valid. I had a quick look online. Nobody nearby has objected because I was initially concerned about noise. We have had issues in the past. It might be a different spec of unit, but they can sort of hum in the background and that can be quite an issue. But if the neighbours aren't overly concerned, then I don't see why we should object.
Happy to support them? Yeah. Okay. On to D, then the maltings in Raymond Street.
Yeah.
So
again,
is this
this is one you have previously?
Yeah, it's a change, is it to?
So, yeah, it's an internal change. On the first floor, there is now, can you bring up the picture with the red boxes that I put on, which I think was in the email, which highlights the exact area of the things. It's quite difficult to spot on the plans as given, but it's basically a sort of plasterboard wall that is being put around a small area of corridor. Yeah, is it possible to zoom that at all?
Yeah.
Zoom in on that a little bit more. If you can just, if you keep it so you can still see the red boxes. You still have the pointing stick, do you?
Okay.
Yeah, it's all high tech now. Yeah, so they basically just put a little extra corridor round there to enclose this for fire safety reasons, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So you can see that that's moved slightly as well, but this is the main thing about the, they've been asked to, as I said, enclose that corridor on the first floor for fire safety reasons, and there are no objections from the historic building consultant, as in he has specifically said yes.
It's the internal study. Happy to support? Yes. Thank you. Right, any 74523, any late planning applications? None. On to 74623, other planning applications to discuss the following planning. Notification the applicant intends to appeal to the Secretary of State.
Yes, so again, this is one that you have previously looked at, and you're not being asked to re-look at it all again. Basically, you can, the only option you're given at this stage, because it's a householder appeal, is you could withdraw your previous comment if you wish. So your comment at the time was supporter. Breckland, however, then decided that, and this is from their decision, the proposed extensions are not to be sympathetic subordinate in terms of design, scale, massing and appearance, would result in a bulky and congruous addition, not compatible with the character and appearance of the wider dwelling and street scene. The householder's appeal refers to various personal circumstances for wanting the extension, gives their reason for appeal that the views of much of the extensions would be largely obscured. Now, I did, you've either got, you can probably either get it on Street View, or I did pick out a picture of the house in question on the email. Yeah. So, as I said, you're not actually being asked to redo your comments or anything. As I said, the only option is whether or not, given this appeal is going in, you wish to withdraw your previous comment of support.
I would suggest we're happy with our comments, and yeah, can we just keep those as were? Yep. Thank you. 74723, decisions of variance.
I'm not aware of one. One came in very late today. I just hadn't had a chance to look at it, but I'll raise it at the next meeting if there is an issue.
Thank you. 74823, items to be referred to the Greater Thetford Partnership.
May I depart from your...
You may.
To involved with that, if that's all right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
At this stage.
We'll see you next month.
Well, won't physically see you next.
Oh, okay.
That's the one I can't do, but after that, in your new home, I look forward to repeating the process.
Okay, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
74923, update on Kingsfleet Sustainable Urban Extension. We've got representatives from Pigeon, I think, to talk us through.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
SUE, Sustainable Urban Extension.
Oh, right, so I'm looking at
The notes.
the notes.
Almost efficient.
Sorry.
Technology works occasionally.
Over to you, gentlemen.
Good evening, and thank you for seeing this evening. My name is Simon Butler, Pigeon Street Planning Director, and the master planner for Kingsfleet. Here with my colleague.
Andrew Bingham, I'm managing the technical side of Kingsfleet, so looking at infrastructure, roads, drainage.
And we've got just a brief few slides, but thought we'd begin with an update. You can see the first one. Okay.
No, thank you.
He knows it all.
Eyes on the back of my head.
First technical hitch. So it doesn't seem to be appearing on your screen, which is odd. references then.
Can you use the arrows on the keyboard to change the page?
Oh, no, it's it's the actual cursor on the drawing.
Oh, I see.
Okay. In terms of King's Street, then we, as you probably appreciate, have basically undertaken most of the house building between Norwich Road and the railway line. We have three national house builders in Hopkins Homes, Hillier Homes, and Taylor Wimpey. Just as an aside, Hopkins Homes and Tillier are part of the same group now, in terms of group mergers and acquisitions. When they started on site, they were two separate companies. Tillier was here, for those of you who are familiar with house builders. Between the three of them, they have detailed consent for just under 700 new homes, both private and affordable. And in terms of order of presence on site, Hopkins came first, Tillier followed, and TW are the latest to the group. So as you'd imagine, there are more Hopkins homes on site, a few of Tillier and a smidgen of TW. As part of, this is all part of the consented phase one. And we had anticipated that we would see, which is the yellow. If you look on your screen, we've got some yellow areas, 3 yellow areas in total. Those are all primary schools, 2 aforementioned primary schools. We had envisaged to see the opening of the first primary school by now, but a combination of the county restructuring some of the existing schools within the town and a unexpected drop-off in birth rate has meant that the need for the school has been put back slightly. So our current understanding is that it will be open in September 2026. I do hasten to add that's the current understanding. Also on the screen between the railway line and Norwich Road, you can see a red building. That red building is our hub, and that for those of you who pass the site is currently in build. That will give home to a 4/5,000 square feet 8 till late convenience store and 2 inline retail uses. We are in advanced discussions with a occupier for the main shop. The 2 inline units, the current thinking is that one of those we would earmark for a coffee shop cum marketing suite for the overall King's Street scheme. So currently on site, each of the individual house builders has their own show home, their own staff present. But in terms of the overarching King's Street scheme, we are looking for a home and we are thinking about, let's say, using one of the shops when it's finally completed. Currently, it's estimated to be completed about this time next year. We have had a little rain, as you know, and that may have pushed us back a bit in terms of delivery. In terms of overall infrastructure.
Okay, so as you can see, obviously we've put in the new traffic signal junction that's been operational for some time, which gives access into the Hopkins site, into Tillier. The road's pushing around now into the Taylor Wimpey site, which is,
sorry, found down that tool. So that's the junction, yeah?
Yep. So There's the roads, I'm trying to do this a bit, so. Ooh. So yeah, we're coming up here, we've suddenly got Taylor Wimpey building this piece to just north of the school. As we go further on, we'll continue around there, obviously build the junction there, which will give us half of the loop. The other bit, half being obviously down east of Norwich Road. The key bit of infrastructure we've put in at the moment, east of Norwich Road, which you'll probably be aware of, we built our new primary substation in the north there. We've put a cable right through the middle of the town, hopefully not causing you too much disruption. It's, from our point of view, it's gone very smoothly. I don't think there's ever been any major disruption in the traffic and so on. We're expecting that primary substation to go live probably in May this year, and that will then give us power to feed into the next sub phases. So the sub phase for the northern will feed down through this piece, later on feeding east, and same time we make provision to connect across the railway, take that power into phase 2 and phase 3. Currently, all the drainage is dealt with kind of locally. So Hopkins have built some basins there, Tilly have built another small one there. The next phase is Taylor Wimpey are putting a pipe across the road here and building a new swale all the way down here and a new basin in this corner. But that will be starting, hopefully when weather conditions improve, again, probably May, June time, I would envisage. That's the key infrastructure we've got in at this stage.
I can take you on to our sort of direction of travel. Most of this relates to the east of Norwich Road. So in bringing forward the land between Norwich Road and the railway station, we have invested a significant amount on infrastructure, and not only the primary substation, but also in terms of both foul and surface water drainage. The way King's Fleet is phased, and if I just skip to this plan, this purple area is phase 1, phase 2 takes you over to the light blue, 3 is the grey, 4 is the yellow, 5 is the green. Given the amount of infrastructure we've we've provided in this area, as you probably appreciate, we've submitted an application to vary the phasing so that to balance provision versus infrastructure, we're looking to expand phase 1 with commencement reduction in phase 4. None of the boundaries change. In terms of land uses, the main differences are that we are focusing, we'll call it the community hub, into this area, where previously it came slightly further over. We've already talked about the shop coming forward. What's envisaged in this centre are elements such as care home, assisted living, health provision. Now, I hesitate when I say health provision because it's a site for health. In terms of working forward with the NHS and CTG, as I'm sure members will appreciate, it's quite a a challenging environment. But we can make provision for a site. There's also things like a nursery and that sort of general type provision. So the idea is that we create a hub here. The basin, the infrastructure that Andrew's talked about, would also double up as open space. So in that sort of general area, you've got quite a substantial focus for community activity. Should point out that also in terms of coming east, we're looking to bring forward some employment. So apologies for bouncing between slides. As you can see from the current consent, employment is delayed until phase 4. In terms of our aspirations, we have experienced quite a lot of demand pressure on bringing jobs forward. So we're looking to deliver that earlier than planned. That's obviously somewhat of a whistle-stop tour through something that's nearly reaching its 10-year anniversary in terms of its consent. But happy, of course, to take any questions.
I've got, thank you, David. Mate.
There might be quite a few. So
Sure.
the school area that's in phase 1,
Yeah.
it isn't being built now. Is that space being kept?
It is, yes.
Okay, that's number 1. The primary substation, thank you. All the grassed areas were seeded.
They were not seated.
No, and if they were, they haven't taken.
I
So
will pull that back. We'll deal with it.
if we could please, particularly on Hearthway.
It may have been that it's been through the winter, that it's been delayed to the time for actual seating. But I will make sure it's done.
Also, no attempt to rake it over and remove any of the flints that came out of the land either.
No.
So I take the point about seeding, but it looked awful along Hearthway. That was one of my points. Sorry, Matt, jumping in there.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yep, we'll pick up on that.
Another one for you. Great to see the infrastructure in there. Streetlights.
There's street lights to go in along Victory Way. That's the only, there's no, highways have no requirement to put them kind of deeper into the estate. So yeah, so that Loop Road will have street lighting, but nowhere else.
Okay.
Which is normal nowadays. They don't.
Are you sort of referring to sort of footway lighting and that sort of thing rather than street lights as such?
Well, any lighting, because, you know, at the moment it's a field. It's very dark on that end of the town. And residents have said.
Okay. I mean, something we can look at. It's certainly never been requested. I mean, it can either then belong, if it goes in, it will either end up being owned by yourselves as a town council or by Thetford Management Company. That's kind of a change from what we've done to date. So we would need to take that away and think about that.
Okay.
I think the point is that we followed Norfolk County Council protocol.
Yeah.
Which, whilst we might accept, has its issues. As Andrew said, it's not uncommon now to see sort of the main roads with public lighting, but the subsidiary roads are not.
So the county council wouldn't pick up any footway lighting. That would be, so town council or management company. There's been no provision made to put that in.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have any town council lighting anywhere in town.
Yeah.
So you know that. Two more, and I'll let everybody else jump in. You've got a dog field in phase 1. It's a really well-used amenity. Is that going to remain?
Yep.
Great. And lastly, you talk about employment at the top. What is employment? What does it look like?
Type of employment.
Yeah.
Variety really, but it's general employment. So it's workshops, it's sheds. It's unlikely to be offices.
So it's going to be industrial units.
Yeah, commercial of that nature. Yeah. Okay. So given its proximity on the A11, it's a natural home in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got David, Matt, Dick, Terry, Stuart, and Terry.
Because you want to bring another phase further forward, more housing going in.
Yeah.
with so many more houses going in, the need for school might be there.
Sure.
So why not put the school in? How are you getting on with all the allotments that are on the drawing? When are they going in?
Okay.
Right, there's the green open spaces aren't green open, but now that's partly been covered. And when's the social housing going in? And the affordable housing seems to be right at the end of the project, rather than sort of being available now.
If I try and remember to do those.
Let's go with social housing.
Social housing, yes. Well, there's a, they're not at the, not at the end, because the Section 106 agreement that covers the scheme has a set mechanism or triggers for delivery on each subphase.
But you can do that when you want to. You don't have to put it in at the end. You can do it when you want to, can't you?
Well, there's two things that normally govern, well, actually, sorry, there's three things that normally govern delivery. In no particular order or priority, there's the housing association, the registered provider, and their call or demand on properties. There is the phasing in terms of the delivery of the subphase, and then there is the planning commission, or in this instance, the Section 106. And the Section 106 does lay out the delivery of affordable housing.
Does, forgive me, I mean, I'm sure Terry knows will put me right, but that is the plan. If you wanted to bring that slightly forward, because there's a shortage of social housing, if you wanted to bring that forward, if you talk to Flagship or whoever the local housing provider is, you could bring that forward if you wanted to.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
So the hesitation comes back to the phasing point. Affordable housing generally.
The social housing, not the affordable, the social.
Sorry, language. Affordable housing is the overarching term that I would use.
Okay.
Which covers social, shared ownership, intermediate, all those things. Generally speaking, it's the private element that delivers the infrastructure, so the roads, the drains, all those types of things.
Profit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and basically delivering an affordable house is cost neutral, also it's profit neutral. So there's an element of phasing in, because you've got to put the roads in, you've got to do all those types of things before you get to your affordable. So that, in terms of how a subphase would come forward, would have an effect in terms of delivery. In terms of parking that for a moment, doing them earlier in a phase, well, yeah, we can look at that.
Could really seriously, could you look at it?
Sure.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Then allotments and open spaces.
The allotments carrying the scheme forward are going to be here. So what we did from the original is that we had, I'm just wondering if it's easier to go back again. Oops, too far. So what we had previously is allotments sort of dotted.
There's a few sites, isn't there?
There was, yeah. Now,
was or is?
In terms of what we're looking at on this plan, it's a was, but the is in regards to this plan. What I was trying to say was that we had pockets of allotment dotted around the scheme, which, when this application went in 2011, determined in 2015, may have been the thing to do. But now the general flavour is you look for basically more match, you bring them together. Because it's more efficient in terms of security, in terms of, for instance, having a building to work with allotment.
Is it the same area?
It is, yeah. It's just then one area, and that's where we're planning to bring forward allotments. Okay.
Can I just make a really important point there, though? Previously, there were allotments, this is Norwich Road.
Yep.
Previously, there were allotments to the left-hand side, which is now within Thetford Parish. Everything to the right of Norwich Road, including where you're now putting in the allotments, is part of Kilverston and Brettenham Parish. So there are all of the allotments as part of Kingsfleet will not come under Thetford Town Council's remit. They'll come under Kilston Bretton Parish Council's remit unless the boundaries moved again.
Thank you, Terry. Right, and the school,
The school,
right, because there's more housing coming in. If you want to bring this phase further forward, it takes years to put a school up. If you started to plan it now for 25, 26, well, you know, if you try and bring another phase in, that's potentially a few hundred more houses. With younger families and everything like that, is there not a need for school? Because the transport from there into the middle of town where the primary school, where the schools are, we don't have the public transport to provide that. So a school on that site, which covers Cloverfields and stuff, would be ideal position.
Another points again there. But firstly, we would have loved the school to have been up and running by now. It creates a social fabric. It's a honeypot in terms of residents and so on. The other end of that particular spectrum, the absolutely matter fact about it is that if you've got a brand new school, then people want to come and move into the area because they want the benefit of the brand new school. It adds either to the value of house sales or the rate of delivery of those house sales. So we're all on the same page in that regard.
Right.
Having said that, the way it works is the county take the site off of us and they deliver the school. Typically they allow a 2-year running in terms of having the site through to opening. And of course, that 2 years is always tailored to a September for obvious reasons. And from their perspective, they clearly need to fund the school because the scheme's paying for the school after it's delivered. So they want to narrow the point of delivery so it's optimised because of the outlay to build a new school. We're not building, by bringing housing forward on the east of Norwich Road, we're not bringing forward more houses. We're bringing forward the same houses that we would have had. We're just bringing them forward in that area rather than over in phase 2. And that's again because of the critical mass on infrastructure. But of course, that also lends itself to deliver this school. September, sorry, just final point for me. The September date is the county's date. So that's actually irrespective of us bringing forward any further housing on the east of Norwich Road.
Right.
They anticipate that that's when they will need to open a new school.
Okay. And going back very slightly, and then I've finished, Stuart, thank you very much. Is there a possibility that that small allotment site, instead of being down over that side, it could go back top left-hand corner, lots of green space?
Left-hand corner.
Keep going, and then sort of keep going. Yeah. And now go left where there's big green spaces.
Into there?
Further down.
Into there?
Yeah.
You could sort that as
That's community site. That's open area, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
a scheduled monument.
That's good.
Fair enough. Okay.
Gallows Hill Street.
Yeah, I'm aware of the place. Yeah. Okay, lovely. I'm finished.
If you want to put it on the side.
I'm very happy. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Okay, I've got Matt, Vic, Terry, and Terry.
While we're on it.
Allowing you to come in, Terry.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick point on schools. I mean, we desperately need a school. The only foot access children have to the academy at the moment is along a muddy, nettle-infested lane.
Joe Blunt's Lane.
Joe Blunt's Lane, yeah, not good enough. So, you know, schools, please.
Again, we're on the same page. I mean, it is quite a while ago now, though. The extension to the academy, so this area, and I'm going back a heck of a long, but that was delivered early than planned because the school was seeking academy status, and it was felt to add So that addition to the secondary provision, as I say, is there. This is the dog walking area we've talked about. There's also a skate park in there from memory. Again, that came early. But the primary, we're on exactly the same page. We'd like that to be open tomorrow. But it's a county-led function.
Okay, it would be nice if you could email and say to the council in general that you will look at housing, social housing, bringing it forward if you can. But obviously, we, appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the councillor for Kingsley area, and I know Mac's quite involved as well, which I greatly appreciate. I've had many walkarounds. I've gone in a few of the show homes as well. They're quite good. The environmental impact is quite good. There's hedgehog holes, which is always a bonus in my opinion.
Okay.
They're built to a good standard. I went into many that were in various stages of their development. Living rooms are a bit small, but they're quite good spec, so that was really good. Just a couple things. A couple of my points have been stolen already. I'll lightly drill on schools. We have an increasing vacancy rate throughout the schools in Thetford of parents taking their children out of the schools because of the standard of education going on. There are now, I know the birth rates may be low, but there are a surplus of children needing education in Thetford. Coupling that with the increasing people moving to the area, I don't think 2026 is good enough. And it's not you, but whoever that can be escalated to. I think it's too far away. I think they're ready now. It's the first thing I hear when I speak to people, and they say when I walk around the estate and speak to them is schooling.
Yep.
The other point I was going to make, Ari, street lighting. I understand this. It was a decision previous council. Outside of the main road, if there were no forms of lighting, it's already a built-up area. It's pitch black. We're going to have to look at some sort of path lights or something somewhere, because the area is it's very, very dark if we were to move away from the main road. And the final point is, you said you're going to be submitting a planning application to switch around. You've already submitted one before, haven't you?
Sorry, that was the application.
That's the one. I voted against it because I'll be blunt. I'll be very blunt. It was an appalling planning submission. Absolutely no information given to us as a council. I think that's probably the reason we actually voted against it. There was no explanation why you wanted moving it, right, at all. Okay. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember the exact reason we voted. It was either because we either voted against it or we didn't vote at all, one of the two. Because the quality that was submitted, no one told us why they wanted moving. It came across as money. It's cheaper to do that bit. So you'll swap around to get the easy bit done sooner rather than later. So if there are any planning bits going to be submitted in the future, we feel free to spoon feed. I'm a new councillor as of May just gone. I've lived here 10 years. So I don't know where this came from, but the application was shocking. I had absolutely no idea why you wanted to swap around.
Right. Okay. If I can pick up on that point then. There is an economies point. I said earlier that we've put a lot of infrastructure into one area. The infrastructure that's put in can cope with more from the housing and associated development plan for phase one. So it seems only logical, dare I use the word sustainable, to capitalise on that infrastructure in terms of maximising its use. We've talked about schools, the idea of putting a school here and then going and starting over here when we've not opened the school yet seems a little irrational to us. So in terms of that focus, there's a logic. In terms of hubs, King Street was designed with 2 hubs essentially. It's not rocket science. We have a railway. So we have one to the east of the railway and we have one over to the west. And those are meant to be the focal points. So I can happily make this point because I wasn't there day one. But that hub spans phases 1 and 4. Doesn't span phases 1 and 2, but 1 and 4. So as it's currently planned, you've got a gap of several years in between one half of a hub and the other. Seems a bit illogical to us. So in contrast, what we've done is we've put all of the hub in the area, and the 106 will be adjusted to bring forward things like community facilities and so on for into one.
No, that's what I said. Don't move on before I answer you.
Okay. And then in terms of bringing public transport into the area, the ideal situation is where you've got this loop in terms of service provision. So rather than one-sided bus route, which is what we would have under the current phasing provision, by bringing development over to this side, we've actually got two-sided. So in terms of optimising the commercial capabilities of a bus service, that puts it in its best position. And then, as we touched on earlier, the idea of bringing jobs forward, they were somewhat sort of delayed in terms of their appearance within the scheme. Again, I confess we have had strong interest in terms of delivering employment here. So would like to provide the opportunity for that interest to be realised. But there are a number of, I say, very positive but hopefully logical reasons why I'm making the suggestion, and I can only apologise that that wasn't made clear in terms of our original submission. What will happen is that we'll be amending in line with this. So no doubt that will come before you again, and we'll make sure that the points we've made this evening will cover that in terms of our amended submission.
I see that, appreciate what you said. Probably still not going to change my mind, probably would still vote, because I don't understand why that, as you said, you weren't there for that bit, why that wasn't the original plan to do it that way anyway. But also I'm a bit about the idea of we're pushing schools back because there's low birth rate, quasi lack of interest, but we're going to change the zoning because it's illogical to have a school built so far away. So we're either concerned about schools or we're not.
Depends who we are.
In general, you want to change the zones because building a school up in that tends to, doesn't make sense for everyone. But then the schools also aren't that important.
Oh, no, definitely didn't say that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I said that we're very much on the same page in terms of wanting.
In regards to changing the zones.
No, in terms of getting the school on site. So schools are great. I mean, I say they're social fabric. They're all of the things that you have in that regard, which is positive community building. But also a brand new school makes people want to move to the area. And to be frank, they'll pay more money to buy a house in that area because they've got a brand new school. Personally, a complete forward comment, but I'd let the school operate a little bit first to see what its achievements were like. But that's not how people generally see it. What I was saying about the area is that under current phasing, after we finished off phase 1, it's a leap over to phase 2. And yet, we haven't even seen the county wanting to deliver the first primary school before we even get to building near what is potentially the second primary school site. So it just seems, as I say, it seems logical to focus on an area that A, you've put a load of infrastructure in, and B, in terms of facilities and provision, you're looking to do it. It seems a natural fit.
I look forward to the application.
Okay.
There you go. I've got Vic, Stuart, then Terry.
A lot of what I want to ask is already asked. Well, you touched on medical facility.
Sure.
It was very quick. What are you including? Is it just going to be in one little corner down by the Tesco's bit, or are we going to have a couple of medical centres, or are we going to have a big medical hub that we could use possibly as a decent medical centre. I mean, there's got to be some substantial medical facility there because it's such a big development and the medical facilities we've already got in Thetford are under so much pressure. They just are not going to, you can't get appointments.
Well, the nuts and bolts of the planning permission for Kingsley is that we're to make a financial contribution for health provision. That's I'd say the baseline. That contribution can be spent on site, so it can be spent within Kingsley, or it can be spent in terms of health provision for the area. It's not dissimilar to the school's point, and we're certainly not trying to sort of step away from responsibility, but we don't determine health strategy. That's what the NHS and the CCG do. And what we're seeing currently is a trend. No, trend's too lightweight. The strategy, as we understand it today, is to create hubs for health, and that health is dealing with everything from dentists to doctors to taking the strain off of hospitals in terms of local provision, small ops, things like that. But all of that is determined by the NHS. We can make provision on our side for a facility, but what we can't do is tell the NHS to deliver that facility.
But having the thing would make it easier for them to do that.
Yeah, we can make land available for.
So I mean, I'm a bit of a novice with this planning stuff. I've only been in council 10 months. But I remember when it first went up and the post went in and said, we're going to put Kingsley here and we're going to have schools, we're going to have shops, we're going to have medical centres, we're going to have everything that you're going to need. Right? And I'm not being horrible, but some very little of that so far. A couple of shops in one place until later on in the stage. I've just heard you're going to put some more shops in at the other end here, or the shops all going into one place. You said where the hub is, you've got the provision for 3 shops.
Yeah, you've got an 8 till 8 convenience store.
And then provision for 2 others.
Yeah, that's the consent.
And is something going on the other side or nothing on the other side?
Yeah, when we get to the western side of the railway, there'll be a similar type facility in this area.
Okay, that's fine. That's my criticism. If it's going to be supplied to my criticisms, none and void. Open spaces, play areas. What play areas? I mean, I've never walked around it. I've driven around it quickly a couple of times. I've never had a good walk around it. What play areas have we got for these children?
If we look at equipped play areas, as you come in off of Norwich Road, there's one in here. This is where the Hopkins Crescent building is. So it sits in front of that. Then what we'll see is Taylor Wimpey deliver a equipped play area here. And essentially what you've got then is provision within close proximity to those houses of equipped play. There is open space across the site and not particularly these, but what we're seeing now is the use of sustainable urban drainage. So the basins that come as part of that, because their design is shallow, they're not meant to go below 2 metres. You often see those doubled up as open space as well now. So when this basin goes in, that uses open space. In terms of the way it's designed, we're actually looking at putting an open air amphitheatre in there. These ones, however, these are the old variety, quite deep. Yes, so don't go and play in those ones.
The final with the allotments, some of these have mentioned already. Yeah. I'm a little concerned that all the allotments are going to go over in that one little corner in Kilverston, and any allotment space, which is also open space for older generation generally, there's absolutely nothing in phase one and right way round that is really, couldn't we find somewhere for allotment space in this?
Yeah, if you want us to look at that, of course. If Norwich Road is the boundary, then we're probably better off looking over in this area.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, sorry, because I'm looking at the whole picture. I'm aware that between the railway line and Norwich Road is where the major first section is, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
There's nothing going on the railway line at the moment. And I would assume that one day when all that starts, which isn't going to be in the too distant future, I wouldn't think, that's when we sort of need to look at possibly putting allotment space over there and doubling up on everything we've got here, because you can't go from where we are built now to the other side of the estate. We're at the railway line now.
Realistically, how long would it take you to look at that and say, actually, we could find, allotment space on that side where your red cursor is now? Realistically,
In terms of bringing allotments forward with you as the town council earlier, happy to look at that. In terms of getting over and building substantially, I know you appreciate, I mean, we have consent for up to 5,000 houses and we've got 700 consented in detail. So we've got a little way to go.
Okay.
In terms of overall speed delivery.
I'm sure some of my colleagues will love to have your phone number.
Thank you
very much. Sorry for interrupting there, Stuart.
We've got Stuart and Terry and Carla.
I noticed on the west, the side of the A11, got provisions for sports pitches. Going a bit further down. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one, when will the work start on them? And two, I know it's a bit cheeky, can we request that it's an all-weather pitch for hockey rather than football?
Yeah.
And who would manage it?
Okay. Cheeky, yeah. And I think that, again, we're back to timing. We are some way away from looking at this.
Okay.
So in terms of how could we bring them forward earlier, we'd have to give that some thought, because if they're going to stay in these areas, it's how do we get to them?
Right. Yeah.
This is the Foxton Road. Clearly, that area is, on the face of it, haven't investigated it in detail, but on the face of it, that looks easier to get into earlier. So we could look at that.
Okay. The next one is, I think Vic spoke about play parks. Last week at our amenities meeting, we agreed to sign up to Everyone Has the Right to Play, which is a campaign that play parks are for not just able-bodied people. Is there a provision for disabled people within these play parks?
There is here. I don't believe there is here.
Okay.
I take your point. And that's something we do need to look closer at.
Because as a council now, we're taking a pledge to say that all the play parks under Thetford's ownership will have facilities for disabled people.
Don't own them ones.
Sorry. Well, can we own them? Oh, no.
Don't give me any more.
The other thing, I saw, again with it, yes, we do need more medical review, but I believe that the criteria is 1 doctor per 5,000 residents, which is negative for us, which is a scam. And the other one is, yes, we do need a new school, but am I right in thinking that Norfolk would rather increase the size of their existing schools as opposed to building a new one?
Let me do the health first. I mean, the health are all on the same page. I mean, without sounding too flippant about it, buildings can be built, provision can be made. It's providing the people in those buildings to give us a service. And I think we're all struggling, county and regionally, in that regard. In terms of the schools, yes, no doubt county will look at spending their money in the most efficient way possible. In some respects, you'd sort of want them to do that. But
does it make sense building a school there? Because on Cloverfields, I believe there was a provision for a school when that was originally built, but they never actually happened on that estate either.
Cloverfields.
Yeah, the estate sort of going down Hearthway, when they first started building, there was a provision for a primary school in there.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. In terms of primary school, again, a couple of things. It's primary and preschool. So each of these has the opportunity for a nursery facility. In terms of when King's Fleet was planned, there was a level of certainty, as you'd imagine, given the scale, that primary schools 1 and 2 would definitely happen. 3 over here was left with a question mark. Long way off into the future, will we need it, won't we need it? So to be very, very open in that regard, this over in phase 4, when we get there, we'll obviously all need to take a view. The funding for building this school, the mechanism is that the county pays for it and then King's Fleet pays them back over time. So it shouldn't, in some ways, it shouldn't be a financial issue. I suppose the other dynamic is the way that schools are occupied, or school sites are occupied now, in that county is obliged to go out to effectively to a tender process and invite academies to bid to come on site. If that's the case, then again, you're most likely looking at an academy that's got a number of school sites. It's a business entity. So the finances probably should be there in terms of running a school. On a very practical level, the likelihood is that the build will be in phases. So you'll have the core provision for a 2-form entry. So the hall will be for the overall school size, the kitchens and all those types of things. But possibly the school itself in terms of classrooms will grow, they'll be modular, and that will be commensurate with the take-up of pupils going to that school.
And finally, it's a long way away, once that is fully completed, is that the only access onto the estate?
Where we?
Well, the current access is the only one almost opposite Tesco.
Yeah.
But is there going to be another access or an exit from the estate? Because if you've got 5,000 houses, you're going to have an awful lot of traffic going on off that estate.
So what you've got is that type of junction that's in at the moment.
Yeah.
Will be replicated in that location.
Right. Okay.
And therefore you've got this loop coming east. Most of east is carried through what we know as 10B and 10A.
I'm not worried about that side because that won't be us.
But just for completeness, there's a link in the future onto Kilston Road. Coming over to you, we are looking at a single version of what's here onto Coxton Road, and that will serve either side. And then there will be a provision for a bus bridge in this location. When I say bus, it's bike and pedestrian.
Yep.
But it's not general vehicle.
And the other slight concern is there's not going to be a road or a pathway going onto the Admiral's estate, because that'll be used as a wrap run and it'll be increase the traffic on the estate on the opposite side of Joe Blunt's Lane.
But there's no provision at any point into existing housing from a vehicular point of view.
Okay.
We're encouraged, as you'd imagine, to do footpaths and cycle things, and there's a number of those that permeate to existing housing.
Thank you. Terry, then Carla.
Yep. Generalised comment. It's this one, sorry. Wait on. Generalised comment about street lighting. I'm a big advocate for street lighting, not least as I think good lighting reduces crime, reduces other antisocial behaviours. It's also safer for women walking around. I'm not aware that Thetford Town Council owns any lighting in this town at all. Is that correct?
I don't think we do.
Yeah. So it feels like we're being blackmailed by Norwich Council. If you want it, you pay for it yourself. And I think that's pretty reprehensible, frankly. Thank you.
Carla, Terry, then Mac.
Actually, some of my questions have been taken, which is great. I want to reiterate the point that Terry made with the lights again. And the point of the lights is that if you guys are going to build schools there, which clearly we very much need so, what time does school usually finish? 3 o'clock. If we get the winter, that's already dark. These children will walk mums and farms and, you know, people in wheelchairs and all sorts. They need to use the sidewalks will be walking in the dark. So I can fathom in my head, I'm struggling with grasping to the idea of why would an estate be built, a substation be put there, so we have the electrics for it, but not the supply of electricity to the residents in the street. So this to me is a bit baffling, and I'm still trying. I've been hearing all the explanations, to trying to really understand where did this all go wrong, basically, because it seems like a pinball game. So county council doesn't want to put the lights in. It's sending it to town council. We never had lights. We can't afford the lights. I mean, it's not something we're covering. So there's no way that we're going to be able to deal with this in the states when that's 5,000 houses of their size and proportion. So is there any other avenue of any other organization, whether it's the management, the builders, or the county council, that is going to be dealing with that aspect, or is this just literally forgotten?
Fine, thank you.
I mean, the whole thinking with street lights, footpath lighting, it's fluctuated over years, isn't it? But there's very much a focus now on dark skies, and the more lighting you have, the more impact you have on dark skies. So it's Victory Way has lighting, the main spine road, because of vehicle safety. It's a sort of traffic route, principal cycle route, so that's got lighting. I think, as you say, elsewhere in Thetford, you don't go for lighting on all side streets, particularly footpath lighting, because of the dark skies, because of maintenance costs.
We have street lighting
throughout Thetford.
This will be a
I
dark zone.
I never did mention what type of street lighting was. I'm not particular which type of street lighting it is. It doesn't need to be a big pole like the old style. What it needs to be some sort of illumination so people can safely walk around the street. Maybe a modern version of it. Maybe it's a grounded light, something power solar. I mean, we need to go environmental. We need to look at options. So I'm not fussed about what type of lighting it is. What bothers me is there is no light at all, for starters. So that's my point. So is there anybody looking at it, or are we just going to pause the whole question?
No, we can look at it.
Okay, yeah. I appreciate it. If you could feed back to us at which point the situation is, that'd be great. My other question is, we mentioned social housing. There's been a few alterations throughout. I mean, it's been a few years since the application, the whole project started. So there's been quite a few changes to it. What's the percentage of overall social housing or affordable housing? I know it kind of branches out to a few different types of housing that is still allocated or projected for the whole site, and which part of that has already been built or occupied?
Okay. The overall percentage is 10%. Which is reviewed at the end of each phase. So with 5 phases, so 4 reviews. The level of provision in terms of affordable housing, it will undoubtedly be Hopkins homes that have delivered most of the affordable housing on the scheme to date, and that sits within this area.
And these Hopkins homes, if I remember well, you mentioned they're the first phase. Then most of the social houses should be already up and built.
No, each
right? No?
Sorry, in terms of.
Well, if you said the Hopkins home is the first phase of the building, in the first building.
Yeah.
And you said the majority of the social housing falls under Hopkins homes, then most of them, the housing should be already there. Am I right?
The last bit, yes.
Okay, so which, I'm trying to understand the whole
In
point.
terms of delivery, yes. So what you've got is each of the 5 phases are delivered in sub phases. So we sell sub phases to house builders, and house builders partner with housing associations for the affordable housing element. So on the screen, this area here, that's Hopkins Homes subphase.
Right.
And they have consent in total terms for 343 new homes, of which 10% will be, no, actually, that's not correct.
15.
Well, the first 15, sorry, the first 500 on the scheme is 15% and it's 10% thereafter.
So the first 500 homes, 15% is allocated to affordable,
Yes.
and then it's 10% subsequently on the next phases for all the rest of the remaining estate.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So Hopkins are around about 51, 52 from memory, and a number of those have been delivered.
Do you know roughly how many have been delivered so far, just for curiosity point? Because I know the lists are on the waiting list are massive, and we get that question quite often.
But as you know, the difference between affordable housing and social housing is massive.
It
Social
is.
housing,
Social housing is the one that has the most demand because it's the one that people can really get on the housing ladder, even shared ownership. There's a degree of percentage of buying the property. So I know that different systems, but let's go then. Social housing, do you have any idea of how much has been put in place already?
I have to get back to that. I think it's somewhere in the region of about 30 to 40.
30 to 40 currently. Already. Okay. Thank you.
Not mindful that in actual builds, new homes, it's around about 300. So whilst there's consent for nearly 700, there's only about 300 that's been constructed.
Yes. Yeah, I remember you mentioned there's a small portion that's actually physically on site. You mentioned very briefly before I pass on the word to others, the section 106, and yeah, I remember that's where the funds from the management, the companies, the builders kind of reinvest that into the community facilities or things like that. Is that all allocated? Who's going to manage it? And what's the point where the money goes? Is it to play parks or is it to any other communal facilities? Can you just clarify a little bit on that?
The section 106, in its most basic form, is us making payments to either the district or the county council, or help.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. The ones that don't put lights in the ground is the ones you're going to send the money to, right? This is something that I need to make sure that I understand well.
Yeah.
So
sorry, the section 106 money isn't to pay for lights.
No, I understand, but it is for community facilities. I think before we have a playground, we need lighting. Maybe I got my priorities wrong, but the way I see it, and having brought up kids in Thetford, no, definitely first the lights, then the playgrounds. We don't all necessary by all means. It's just a bit of feedback, personal opinion, that you need to have the basics first before you expand on that and build the facilities. If the money goes to district and county, what comes to the town council as the local area at all, if any? I'm just wondering.
In terms of direct financing?
Exactly, as funds from
I don't believe the 106 has any provision to make contributions directly to the town council.
Okay, so we get none of the benefit to be able to produce things in the community with the expectation that we take on lights and other responsibilities. Am I right?
The financial contributions are for instance, if I use the county as an example, there's a financial contribution for libraries provision. So library provision.
Okay.
So the council would take that financial contribution and they would put it to improve library provision within the town. That would be our understanding. And there's a variety of matters in the same. So it's not just have some money. Planning can't do it that way. We're not allowed to do it that way. It's money for
Specific.
provision. Yeah, specific matter.
I get it. Thanks for clarifying that. Last point, contribution to the health provision, which Vic quite rightly pointed. So
Yeah.
is this in the provision of you provide the land alone, or do you provide the land and the building portability on site for the NHS to take over? Because that'd be brilliant. I mean, clearly they're struggling to balance between having the location, the facility, and then being able to provide those services. I mean, like they mentioned, one doctor for 5,000 doesn't have no favors when we're struggling here with appointments. But how far is your contribution to that health provision? How far does it go? The ground is the building?
It can be land if the health service wants to build within Kingsley and it's money. So it's
So
not.
it's both. It's the ground and funding for it.
If the health service want to locate a facility in Kingsley. We don't govern strategy.
Okay.
So probably a slightly perverse example, but if the health service decided that they're going to put all the health provision in Attlesborough, our contribution would go towards that provision in Attlesborough.
So that's what I'm trying to understand. So all your funding, your resources for that would follow to whoever the NHS, whatever they send the services.
Where they want to send it.
That's what I was trying to understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's me.
Terry, then mate.
I'll try and keep it brief because I appreciate time's getting on and we've gone over a lot of ground, and I've got a couple of suggestions to make at the end. The first one, just to pick up on schools, because I'm in a slightly privileged position as a county councillor, because I've been in the room when we've been debating the school provision in Thetford, and I never do this, but I will defend Norfolk County Council here, because it's a bit of a when an area, particularly an area of growth, needs a new school, and trust me, they have looked into this thoroughly. They've looked at the statistics, they've looked at birth rates, they've looked at all sorts of other things, and their calculations have clearly demonstrated there is not a need for a new school yet. There will be in years to come, but the worst possible thing we could have is either a new school opening and being empty, or unsustainable, because at the end of the day, school funding is based on pupil numbers, or, as I think one of you mentioned, parents choosing to take their kids out of other Thetford schools and move them to the nice shiny new one, and undermining other Thetford schools. So it's really important they get this right and they don't open it too soon. It's also really important they don't open it too late and we run out of schools. Yeah. So yes, it is about birth rates, but I will just throw in there, it's also about education standards in Thetford. It used to be that a minimum of 500 children a day went outside of Thetford for their education, because of a mixture of reasons. Some of them because they want to go to the Catholic school in Bury, for example, or they go to Methwold. But an awful lot of that is by choice, because they choose to take their parents out. So it's not a question of money, in my opinion. It's more about demand. I was at the Greater Thetford Partnership meeting recently, and I made the point that Pigeon should be communicating more clearly with the community that the school is still coming. It's one of the most tangible benefits from the urban extension, and we should be being really clear with the public that it is coming, it's just delayed, and this is the reason why. And Will Van Clatsum took it away as an action that they will look at the communications. We are going to get a new school in Thetford, which I think is a good thing, but there's a good reason why it's not happening. So that's the first point. There's not. I understand you guys want it as soon as possible, which can completely understand.
Can I just interrupt you for a moment, if I may, Terry? I understand the points you've been making, and I think it's great help that you have been involved in those discussions or part of those discussions. And I quite sympathise. Wow, I should come here and sympathise with you. I don't know, but I do, because it's making your job more difficult. If you have to say to people, well, no, your kids can walk a mile or they can bus, but no, they can't walk to school. It's too far. And I find that fairly amazing. The thing I think, the point that's been missed, it seems to me, is that to some extent it's a self-fulfilling publicity. We don't need a new school because we haven't got a new school. So what will happen is that people who are the parents of 5-year-olds, to take the extreme example, will say, I'm not going to come to this new development in Thetford because my child hasn't got a school to go to there. And for their first school, it's really important that they're able to walk to it, as I did and my grandfather did and my great-grandfather did. I think in other words, what you're doing is you're saying we don't want people, families with children of that age, because we're not providing the appropriate facilities for them. And if I can just go a stage further on that, and it applies to schools and the idea of not having streetlights is pretty amazing. But I understand the point about streetlights, but you know, we are living in the third decade of the 21st century, and you're telling me in effect that it's not possible to design a shade of a light so that the light goes where it's wanted and doesn't go where it's not wanted. I find that really hard to believe, that we cannot actually provide lights that put the light where it's needed. But returning to schools, I'm just absolutely amazed that we can say 2 years, yeah, that'll be all right. In those 2 years, families will be saying, we don't want to come to this new development. I think it's typically known as Kingsley, but that will pass, I know, because there is no school for our young children. And I just think that's a missed opportunity. And furthermore, colleagues, this is what we did in Cloverfield. We provided a new estate, a growing estate still, with no facilities whatever. Nothing. No schools, no shops, no pubs, nothing. No social. And we're saying, oh, what a wonderful idea. Let's do the same here. I think we're crazy. I'm sitting here befuddled and bemused at what I'm hearing. I think we are absolutely crazy to let this happen. If we can conceivably stop it, we ought to do so. We need an area which has got public facilities. I thought streetlights were fairly basic. I thought schools were still quite useful ideas. Rant over, Mr. Chairman.
I know, finished. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Terry.
No, you're quite all right. Quite all right. One of my actions was, if it is something the council is passionate about, here we are, to request the evidence. You know, we're making assumptions here that there's a demand. Let's get the evidence from Norfolk County Council. As a county council, I'm satisfied they've done their job properly and looked at the statistics. If it's something the town council feel actually they've got wrong, we should be asking. But we as a town council haven't asked either of our two county councillors to do anything about schools in Thetford. So, you know, I'm quite happy to have the debate. I'm glad Matt mentioned about ground disturbance, Herfway and that sort of thing linked to the cabling. One of my bugbears, we're doing a lot of work as a town council to try and improve the town, address fly tipping, litter, that sort of stuff. The area opposite the Tesco junction, which comes under your land, is awful. You know, it's privately owned as part of Pigeon, and some of the roadside verges completely full of rubbish. I don't know who does your sort of site maintenance, that sort of thing, but if we could maybe work together on that sort of thing, that would be. Every time I drive out of Tesco junction, my blood boils because, you know, here we are on our side of the road. We can't cross the road and go into tiny private land.
I just think on that, the estate have been clearing that corner in the last week or so.
Oh, okay, good. I have winched about it.
We've been working around that.
Okay,
area.
good. Well,
we'll check and we'll take.
Yeah, it's partly because obviously where you chop all the hedgerow and stuff down, it exposed a lot of rubbish that was tucked underneath. So that's why it's looked a mess for a long while.
We'll take it back.
That'd be great. And similarly, I've had reports today from residents about the chaps that are doing the work down Three Nuns Bridges for the cabling, washing tools, washing water runoff into the river, which is obviously a big no-no from Environment Agency.
Yeah, definitely.
You've probably got some sort of permit to do the cabling that close to the river, but there was a lot of water runoff into the river, which is not.
Yeah, there's a surface water management plan as part of the planning consent.
They might not be adhering to it then based on what I've heard today. That's the first thing. One of the main conversations we've had today is around what we call trigger points. And as part of section 106, as part of the planning application, there is a big long list about each time 100 homes is occupied, Pigeon, whoever, have to pay over a load of money to X, Y, and Z. That's in a very large document. And I wonder if we might want to receive that as a town council to go through, just so that we're aware of what those trigger points are. Because some of them, you know, 2 years ago, it was theoretical, but some of them are actually coming live now. So we might, you know, particularly for new councillors, they might want to be aware of what the trigger points are. I think certainly David and Carla made reference to sums of money and levels of affordable housing. And then similarly, I'm really pleased that the health provision aspect has progressed. And I know it's a point that Vic's been making about sort of minor injuries unit, that type of provision. Again, at the Greater Thetford Partnership, we've had the CCG in 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Again, it was theoretical. And we might be wanting to get them here or get them back to the Greater Thetford board. We have 2 town council reps on the board saying to the CCG, right, what is your latest thinking on demand in Thetford, and being proactive as a town council and trying to influence some of that. And then last point is about streetlights. Again, by virtue of being here since the dawn of time, I remember the debate in this room, as you probably do, Stuart, where we were asked as a town council, if you want streetlights on Kingsfleet, you have to take them on as a town council. This town council voted no. It might be something the new town council wants to reconsider. But, you know, these chaps are right. The Norfolk County Council policy is that for new developments, you don't have to put footway lighting in. And in places like Thetford, where we've got a new development, you're going to have a community that has facilities and infrastructure different to the rest of the town. And that's exactly what's happened. And I've had people from Kingsfleet contact me and say, when are they putting in the streetlights? Well, they're not coming at the moment unless something changes. So we might want to have this point. So trigger points, CCG, streetlights and schools. I think actually there's some tangible things that could come out.
I think if Alan takes those down, we'll try and revisit those. Some of those, I think, as an appendix with a section 106 I think we can get quite easily, and just to inform people. Streetlights, you're right, we did discuss it. It wasn't part of Thetford at the time.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, well, how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
And that was what it boiled down to, I think, in reality. Okay, Mac.
Sorry, Chair, just the district council have a section 106 officer.
Yes.
I mean, should be the easiest point of call to take the 106 council forward.
That's still Charlotte. Charlotte Brennan.
Mac.
You can tell this is really useful to us because we're so out of date with the information we've got and the maps we've got. So hence all the questions, because that's a change. Can we get that presentation?
Yeah, sure.
Or at least that slide.
This is going to be part of the amendment to the non-material amendment application that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So that will come with that as along with an explanation, and that should be with you shortly.
Well, obviously we, speak to the residents and they're asking us questions. We've got something to base it on. Notwithstanding every change, get it?
Yeah.
Right. The next one is social hub down in the right hand side here. You mentioned, primary centre.
Yep.
Lots of different things, maybe residential. Is there going to be a community hub, i.e. a multi-use area that the community can use for meetings, for different kinds of activities? Because it's one thing that some of our estates lack. Somewhere where all the community can get together for what they want to do.
The intention plays. Okay. There is finance in 106 to bring forward community facilities. The only caution in that regard, I guess not trying to obfuscate any responsibility. It's sustaining. It's how are they going to be sustained as a facility. So a lot of village halls, those types of things these days are essentially run by volunteers. And in terms of what they offer by way of a set of facilities, I'm not saying Kingsley won't need it, obviously the scale would say it would. But the balancing act is to try and ensure that what happens is the new facility doesn't just pinch stuff from existing facilities, but somehow you make it complementary. Daft example, village hall down the road as a yoga class. Yoga class picks itself up and comes to a new facility because it's a new facility. So the existing
that's far enough away from everywhere, though, isn't it?
Well, possibly, but like I say, there's just a bit of planning in that to make sure that it's a win-win rather than so.
No, good, as long as it's thought through. The next one is railway running through the middle of the safety fence. Is there any provision for that? a safety fence to stop children going up onto the railway embankment?
It's all in place.
It should be, yeah, that's the rail responsibility, I think.
It'll be, it's a network rail fence. Yeah. That they take care of that. So there should be fencing all the way along.
There's existing crossings which are being closed or being closed.
So in this point here.
Crossing.
Yeah, so that, when we say there's a crossing, there's an agricultural
Yeah.
crossing, but or put houses near, I think you can get across, something might happen, so that's getting closed. They will no longer be.
So as it stands at the moment, there's 2 strands of wire.
Is that all that's there? Okay.
We'll do that up with the road.
Yeah.
And finally, so when this was all put together, right at the very beginning, we were told about how it's going to add to our town. It's going to be part of Thetford. It's going to look like Thetford. I'll be honest with you, it could be Thetford, Tring or Tobermory. It looks exactly the same as every other new estate you might find. One of the things that is really clear about Thetford is its look of flint. There's plenty of it on that area. You know, chalk and walls, and there isn't any of that. Not really. What I would make finally as well is our new entrance to the town is going to be an industrial site. And that isn't going to extend out because that's right on the A11. So the first thing people are going to see of our town is that. The welcome to the town is down by Tesco's, the big sign. Is there a provision in any way
to move that further
to make the entrance to our town and to this new development feel part of the town?
In short, not down to that level of moving a sign, but that you're right, the new entrance is going to be here.
Yeah.
The employment side, I take the point. It's how do we design that to make sure we get the balance right? Because on the one hand, the end user, what they need, what
I completely get it. You saw one of our planning considerations earlier. Some of our old malt houses and the likes are pretty much flint clad, and they were industrial use. So it's just perhaps maybe if you can.
I do get the point with flint. Yeah, it would be wrong for me to suggest otherwise. But doing it properly, as in nap or full flint, properly put in place, I'm sure you appreciate is really quite expensive. Personally, the alternative, and look, I'm not telling Hopkins, Tilly or TW what to do in that regard, but the flip side is you get the flint blocks.
Flint panels.
Yeah. And whoever puts those in have got to do it really well for it to stand a chance of looking what it's meant to try and look like. But so often you see all of the joints, and you just know it's a set of blocks. And I'd rather not look at that, because I think that's worse than not having flint in the first place. But that's just a personal view. I think by the Hopkins Homes design, I mean, and again, this is a broader point. Volume house builders tend to have their styles, and there is a distinction between Hopkins, Tillier, and TW. What we're charged with doing is trying to ensure that they align with one another without losing their own identities. But the broader point you make is quite understandable. You can go and look at a Hopkins Homes and it's a Hopkins Homes. You actually know that it's a Hopkins Homes because of their house type style. You can go on to Kilston Park, next to Cloverfield's gone to the brick cover, and that's a Hopkins Homes scheme. And you can see the DNA between there and on our side. In terms of the reputation of Hopkins or the quality of their homes, we actually thought that was a good first deliverer for the scheme to set a decent benchmark, because there are others out there that, to be frank, are not as good. But the bespoke identity point, I understand.
I think in the course of time, I don't want to know it's a Hopkins home. I want to know it's a Thetford home.
No, it's a quality home.
I'd like the individuality of our town to be retained in somewhere. I take your point about doing it badly, and that's a fair comment. But we need to find a way of making it. What was your lovely comment about the comparison with somewhere hundreds of miles away? Okay, Tobermory, yeah. I don't want to look like Tobermory or Hopkins. I want to look like what the traditional understanding of Thetford is now. Just make the point incidentally that it's not just flint, it's crunch or chalk as well. And they are both local materials, and we should be seeing them incorporated somehow.
We could genuinely, we could spend hours on this one. I don't mean to be dismissive of that. But firstly, I think there's the other side of that coin, and that is the innovation side. The quality in terms of build construction, thermal insulation, all of those properties are high. Building regs is good in that regard. But taking it into a different place in terms of innovation, that wouldn't necessarily be Thetford. But should we be embracing those types of house types as well?
Well, the innovation I would like to see is encouraging people to walk, whereas in fact a lot of what I'm hearing, I go back to the 2 points about schools and I'll stick on schools, but we're not encouraging people to walk, it seems to me. We're having a school too far away. We're having apparently a possibility of unlit roads so that people are not going to want to walk along those. I think that would be an incentive to say the modern thing is not to drive your car, it's to walk, or at least to cycle.
Yeah.
And we're not encouraging that as far as I can see. So I think the wrong innovations.
I definitely take your point in that regard. I mean, we have, as of June of last year, we have Active Travel England. So we have a government-backed body that's there to influence design. So it focuses on pedestrians and cyclists. But I do take your point that you're going to have something like that in terms of 24/7 use. Does that include lighting? But when we look at designs now for developments, our starting point should be walking and cycling, not managing the car. And we're encouraged to do that. And things like Active Travel England are there to, certainly on major schemes, try and ensure that we do that.
Carla.
In regards to the innovation of the homes, I think there's a distinction between the efficiency of the home on the inside, the build and the quality, and how modern it can be using technology to the advantage to keep the homes efficient, and the external side of the houses, which don't necessarily have anything to do per se, because it is just the shell. The shell can look like a townhouse, or it can look like a modern house, and it can be made to fit within the aesthetics of the remaining of the region. I think that's the point that he was making. And the appeal of Thetford is that it's flint and it's historical, and that's what brings people in. That's what is known for, and that's within the whole of the town. It makes us unique and different from the rest. If we have this completely distinct looking houses on the side, it's not going to feel part of the fabric of the town. It's going to feel substantially different. I think that's the point he was trying to make. And one last point I was going to make is, I think at some point we need to learn with past mistakes when it comes to planning in the overall design of the estate. You mentioned there's very few exits. There's one pedestrianized one towards the end of on the eastern side. I think western side, and there's the main interest one, which will be the industrial area, to say where the employment is going to be sort of taking place. I'm concerned that he didn't mention that it's not the most appealing thing in the world to have people coming through to a new town right through the industrial estate, and to me it just didn't make much sense, because every industrial estate there whilst I'm full for jobs and I want to promote more industry locally, which is one of my priorities, we do have a great roundabout with industrial estate already in town, which is got a plenty of space to be developed, where those businesses and the noise that goes with it and the commotion and the trucks and everything that goes with it could be better placed rather than in a residential estate, which, to be honest, the term I'm going to use is going to be a dormitory, because we lack enough commercial or retail facilities to call it anything else other than a residential dormitory where people come in the end of the day. I mean, most people like to go further afield to buy anything, whether it's groceries or anything else they may need on a daily basis. If we're going to learn with the previous mistakes in planning, is that if you look, for example, in my ward, where we have Pine Close and we have basically that end of town, which is closed, there's really no exit. What happens is over time, and once you have this state built up, over time, you're going to start seeing problems, particularly if there's dark spots because there's no proper lighting, like antisocial behavior, criminal issues, and all sorts of issues, where when you have an enclosure towards an area that is closed with the lack of clarity, or that is not open enough, it won't be safe enough. And I think that's the point of concern that I'm trying to pass on to you guys, maybe to give it a thought. If the area is going to be closed without lighting, over time we'll get derelict, will be antisocial behavior, and it's going to turn out to have same issues, which some of them we already have on the current estate, like I mentioned on mine, which is Pine Close, the Abbey Estate, which is the other area, which is a lot of housing towards one of the ends. It's sort of it's got the woods around, but it creates a lot of issues with antisocial behavior, and because a lot of housing crammed in one place. Have a lot of houses crammed in one place, but you don't have the avenues, even for the safety and the police to circulate properly. And things just kind of get, strangled there without an exit. I think you'll find that 5-10 years down the line, when this estate is built, you will start seeing some of those issues, similar to the ones we have on those current estates as well. So I just want to make you mindful about that. That's maybe give you some thought about the planning, especially on the entrance and exits of the estates for safety reasons.
Vic and then David.
Very quickly, no, I'm not going to say. Very quickly, you've got the industrial estate up there. If I remember right at the outset of this, one of my very first recollection, the industrial estate was going to be on the other side. Sorry, the industrial estate was going to be on here, wasn't it?
You got the Thetford down where the Buddhist site is to the other side of Mumford Road. That's where that's still earmarked for industrial use, but it's
that was as part of this.
Well, it was there linked to it, but the
all this should have been like, we're all new, the majority of us are new councillors. The only thing that's come out of this is any good is Terry's going to take up with Norfolk what's happened to 106 money. All this stuff about the layout, the transport, the schools and stuff like that should have been talked about under the previous council and the one before that. Yes. We're going over ground that is not going to get us anywhere.
Okay, David, I'm conscious of your point you're making, but I am conscious that we have a lot of new councillors who have not been on the journey and need this background information to understand, to engage with everybody in Thetford, because it is a major part of Thetford. Terry and I have been around long enough to have been on the journey with this, and a lot of these things have been discussed. A lot of brick walls have been come across, and the health provision. We've been told, yes, they'll make contribution, but it's going to be expanded at the Healthy Living Centre. You can't get the doctors anyway, so it'll just be there. Schools, they'll only build them when the county council said there's a demand for it. Yet we expand Drake in the wrong time, so that you don't have the demand because so there's lots of things that have gone wrong and lots of things. Look at the space between Joe Blunt's and the bridge. You've now put a massive dividing line between those two estates with no connectivity between the two, and that's the largest section of the railway line there. There's loads of that green infrastructure. We were promised the earth on green infrastructure. You had one nice path going along the railway line out to Wretham. As soon as they start building, they close it off both ends. So those were people who want to access the cycle-free route. Up at the Wretham thing, they've put a gate, a new where your dog walking area, that's cut off. People used to walk along that track and use it to get out to Wretham without having to go on the roads. So there's lots of problems that we've picked up. And I'm afraid, sorry, Chair, I'm on the rant.
No. I like a good rant.
Allotments, they deferred them, so it means we haven't got the ones that come through on this phase. Boudica site, we've got that massive thing there. It's put back. Let's get some interpretation up there, start marketing, telling the story of Thetford. I've raised this number of times. The hockey club, example, they put up the sports pitches right on the bypass there. Who's going to manage them? We've got a shortage of managed recreation space in the town already. We only got the skate park because there's a lot of horse trading went on with Pigeon at the time to get it going, and we really appreciate that was able to put in place. But we're getting to a stage now where the hockey club needs to be dealt with as part of this. So I'm going to call it a day there, but there are lots of points, and I know it's not your fault because you've got away with the planning Pigeon have in the past. When all this Sue was done, we got it at the 11th hour because the Stone Curly popped up and suddenly it was all going to the north, and a lot of things that should have been dealt with seem to get brushed aside to deliver this. And I'm like you, Carla, we've got a dormitory town being bolted on. We've got no facilities there. We only get community hall on Cloverfield at the behest of the Church of England URC putting a church in there. And that's unfortunate because that is well used as a community hub now. We've got nothing coming forward there because nobody's going to manage it. You've got play parks that nobody's going to manage because we haven't got the money to do it. There's a lot of things that Pigeon and the Sue has all gone away with planning. We were promised the earth and we're getting delivered a bolt-on community. So I'll call it a day. I do thank you, gentlemen, for coming along because it's been informative, and I know time's getting on, so I just want to draw a line on it. But it's informative for my councillors. It's frustrating for me for being here for the best part of 20 years, going through this process, knowing full well we're not getting a better deal than we should have been. But thank you. Matt.
Can I ask a question of yourself and Alan? Can we revisit this in X amount of months to have a response from Pigeon? Can it be a separate item outside of planning?
Yeah, because of time.
Because we've got two big hot topics still to come. It's going to be a late one today.
I know.
This is such a big thing. I think, can we have it as something in 4 or 5 months' time to get?
Hopefully the gentleman will come along and feedback on a few matters there. But
just managing your diary for us.
Next Thursday.
I know
we get answers.
We're not the easiest crowd, but we do appreciate the clarification. I think many of the problems is that we never really got all the information to start with, and the information we got, everything changed later on, and we seem to feel lost over time. So if you could guys come back and then let us know what's going on, that'd be brilliant.
If you're happy to have us back.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Can accommodate.
It's not nothing personal. We just
No,
systems let us down.
At all, nothing personal.
No. I mean, it's a heck of a journey.
Yes.
It was 10 odd years in the making before we got nearer consent. So
I've been here that long.
Well,
That's
there's a few decades to go.
Yeah.
So regular conversations with you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, we're back in the meeting. I'm asking councillors to move section 2X of standing orders to, as we reach the 2-hour mark, so that we may continue. I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're on to Guildhall 2 Towers update.
This has been one of the hardest things I've had to do since I've became acting director. In essence, what happened, to summarise it and how I've got to understand it, is that there was an assessment done in 2023. It looked like the towers would either fall through the ceiling or would be blown onto the market square. So we had an emergency maintenance, emergency procedures. We put up the scaffolding. It's a worst case scaffolding. It's exceptionally elaborate, and we've been. The contracts that we've used have a lot more detailed tests. And what is very disappointing that it's only up until sometime in January that they actually came back and said that the clock tower is actually not as bad as it looks. So in other words, it's not going to fall off. It's not going to get blown away. It will at some stage need repairing. The small little clock tower on the side above Dad's Army, or that's on that section of the building, is actually in a worse state than the one where all the scaffolding is. So that's got 8 supports and only 7 are in a good position.
So we put the scaffold in the wrong place?
No,
I'm confused.
the risk was on the clock tower. So what we've had to do is we've had to assess. It's going to cost us a lot of money. If we take it down and put it up, we're looking at 50 to 60,000 pounds. We've now got quotes, and it's taken us a huge amount of time and effort. We've got quotes to get the clock tower repaired. That figure is in the paperwork that we distributed, about 50,765. So to do those repairs, there's some added cost that we would incur on scaffolding. Repairs done 6 to 8 weeks, and then the whole scaffolding can come down and the building can be put back into its condition. So in the paper that I've distributed, we have some options. One is that we remove the scaffolding and we say there's no emergency, and we wait 2 or 3 years, and every year we go and we do regular inspections, and in 2 years' time or 3 years' time or 4 years' time, we might have to put the scaffolding up and redo all the work. The second thing is that we get the clock tower repaired. That will incur another 6,000 to 8,000 pounds of additional scaffolding costs. Or the third option is we remove the scaffolding and we immediately apply for grant funding, bearing in mind that with a funder, having just taken down the scaffolding, would the funder say, well, why are you incurring another 40,000 to 50,000 pounds of putting the scaffolding back up again? So those really are the options that we have. The decisions to make, or for this committee to consider, there's obviously other ones, is to decide whether or not to undertake the repairs for 50,000. If it's decided to do that, we suspend financial regulations. And if the decision is not to undertake the repair work, is to remove the scaffolding after obtaining professional advice that it is safe to do so. We still have to do that part of it. And that's in summary what the paper is.
Okay, got Matt and then Terry.
Please, someone do correct me if I am wrong, but for the scaffolding that is currently up isn't actually holding anything up. It's just access scaffolding.
No, it's to prevent. It was designed. Excuse me. It was designed to prevent the clock tower actually falling through the ceiling. They actually thought that was one of the risks. If it collapsed, the roof wouldn't be strong enough. So what they've done is they've provided all the support internally to support that happening.
Okay. Okay.
Terry, Vic, then David.
I think we're in danger of inhabiting the world of the sunk cost fallacy, or what my mother used to refer to as chucking good money after bad. I really do think we need to cut our losses. Have we any idea? I mean, my preference would be to seek grant funding, get the scaffolding down, seek grant funding and do it properly from the start. Do we have any idea how easy it would be to get that funding and how long it would take?
We haven't pursued that. We just, our big pressure.
I understand this is very much of today, isn't it? Yeah, I do get that, but that's my feeling on it.
Got Vic, David, then Stuart.
One of the first things I was told when we come on it with it, when this come up, was, and I know the lady isn't present now, but it was basically, we get out there, see what needs to be done. We've got the funding. We'll have no problem getting the funding. Blah 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 blah. And it seems that everything that we've been told up to now has been a crop of rubbish. Yes. And we're now getting to the situation where we either have to find 70 grand, is it, to get this fixed, or
it's cost 70 grand so far, isn't it? Am I right?
Is that what's cost so far?
Yeah.
We're looking at another 50 odd.
Yes.
That we haven't got anyway, as far as I'm aware, or do we have that available? It's a rubbish, really. What we've gone through in the last 10 months on that is complete and utter incompetence, I would put it down as, to be honest, because we were basically told, it's just a matter, put it up, we'll get a grant, and none of that. Where's all this work that was done before? Where's that now? It seems to have just disappeared into an abyss. £70,000 of this.
I think you asked the question, is the money there? Alan says it was, but David, Stuart, then Terry.
No, I'm in favour, actually.
Thank you.
I'm just looking at the £70,000 that it's cost just to have scaffolding outside the Guildhall. So am I right in thinking that the company that done the original assessment have said it's going to fall down, and the company that's just done another inspection has said it was exaggerated? Am I right in thinking that someone along the line is trying to hoodwink the town council into getting to spend an awful lot of money on something that doesn't actually need doing yet? You know, it probably will need doing eventually, but I'm thinking if that's £70,000 and a further 50,000 to have it done, £120,000, and is it likely to fall down anyway?
If I can comment, I mean, what we were told when we had the feedback on January was that they did a drone inspection. First of all, they flew a drone up just to assess it. They then said, look, it looks very seriously. So they put up the scaffolding. They then said, okay, this is really, really serious. So they had to reinforce it, put all of the internals. What happened in January is when they actually had access to it, they were able to start probing it and actually getting into the timber struts. And they were saying what's happened over the years is that I think about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they had a paint job, for example, but didn't use proper paint. So all that paint, all it's done is it's just bubbled, it's allowed a little bit of water behind the paint. So when you look at it visually, it looks as if the whole thing has collapsed. What they found is that it's not as bad as it looked like through all the visual inspections that they did. When they had a chance to do the testing, they've had a chance to go into the roof and actually make sure that the beams are strong enough, because the beams on the Guildhall apparently are, they should be able to hold up anything. There's no risk of the clock tower falling through it. But it's taken that amount of time to actually get to those answers and for someone to ask the question. And I know that people that the council sit and finance personnel will know that they hate it when I say this. We should have got a project manager right up front to actually advise us. We've been trying to do these things. We at the moment, regardless of what the council think, we are going out and getting professional project managers to help us on all these big projects. We've got the fire risk assessments. We cannot do that internally. We're fooling ourselves if we can do that. We can't follow, if the council decide to get this repaired, Nick and I don't have the skills to be able to do this. We've got to get professionals in to project manage it and to look after the council's interest. And that to me is the biggest mistake that we made. We tried to do these things. There was no internal responsibility. I mean, I only got involved, in November when I got collared at one of the, rightly so, at one of the committee meetings. And I started to try and understand and meet with people myself to see what's actually going on. So it has been a very unprofessionally run process up to a point in time.
I think letting a drone inspect a building is probably the biggest mistake. Well, how can a drone inspect a building when it's like sitting up there?
Terry first.
Well, you've got to prod it.
Given the cost to put it up, 45 grand, and then the ongoing cost, which was quite significant, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but the council should have absolutely been ready to have all of the professional services at its disposal once, so that we could come to a conclusion. The money wasted in my book is not the money putting the scaffolding up, it's the money wasted between when it went up and now, because we should have been within a week of it going up, been informed what the situation is so that we could make a decision. That said, I think the grant funding argument is a bit of a fantasy, because if we're going to spend 45 grand, 50 grand to put it up, the odds are you'll then have to do the work yourself, because you'd never be in a position to wait for grant funding, because we're looking at a cost roughly equivalent to the cost of the scaffolding to fix the issue. A funder's not going to then give you the money. I do think there should be some sort of review of how decisions of this nature are made. We're talking about significant sums of public money. And I think, it's only right that we look at our internal systems and processes that led to this. I'm quite keen to do that. That said, of every single thing that this council owns, if you look at all the buildings we own, this is the Guildhall. I don't think the council would be forgiven by the public if we didn't maintain it properly. It's one of the most significant buildings in Thetford. We've got to look after it. We have reserves for a reason. We have a responsibility, frankly, to maintain it. So as much as the sums are quite significant, and I can think of lots of other things I'd like to spend them on, we have to maintain the Guildhall. There's no ifs and buts about it. I'm quite happy to propose that we go with option 2, which is repair now. suspend financial regs, and we fund it from the properties repair fund. That's what the fund is there to, property repairs reserve. That's what the reserve is there for. We've wasted enough time. Let's get on with it.
Okay, so we've got a proposal. David, do you want to?
Exactly what Alan said, the management of it was amateurish and it was let go. And I was one of the people that I'm sorry that I pushed and pushed and pushed and went along to the inspections and everything like that. We got it wrong, or the previous council got it wrong. We've learned from it. We've learned from it. Sorry?
It was us.
It wasn't?
It was.
We didn't put that scaffolding up.
No, we voted for it.
We should have had financial management in it, and every other project we do now must have that financial management in. If you put the bill up, fine, because let's get it done properly.
So Terry's tabled the proposal. Could I have a second to that proposal?
No.
So move to a vote then. All those in favour of the proposal? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Does it have to go to full council for ratification? No?
This is equivalent to full council planning.
And the only question. Alan, I wasn't having a pop at you guys.
No. I'm part of management. We have to take, take the bad with the good.
So 75123, community engagement. Is there anything we wish to put out there? 75223, the officers update, Alan? Nothing. Okay, so 753, exclusion of present public. Consider resolving pursuant to the public body's mission to make the exact 1960, present public excluded from any remaining items of business or grounds of public the confidential nature of the business to be discussed.